If you're not a 22-year-old filmmaker who went to film school and somehow has industry connections, welcome to the club. That's been most of the filmmakers we've helped get films made and distributed. And honestly, a lot of them secretly believe they might have missed their window because the film industry loves selling the idea that success happens young. But here's what no one really tells you. Making your first feature film later in life can actually give you advantages younger filmmakers just don't have. You understand time differently, money differently, risk differently. You've built relationships, you've developed life experience, probably failed at enough things to stop romanticizing the process. And that matters more than people realize. Because filmmaking is not just creativity, it's strategy, leadership, resourcefulness, momentum. And after helping over 400 filmmakers package and produce projects, I can tell you that some of the most strategically successful filmmakers we've seen started in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s. So in this video, what she did differently and why approaching filmmaking like a producer instead of just a creative completely changed the outcome. So one of our clients, Erin Carrera, recently made her first feature film after 40. And her story perfectly reveals what I think a lot of filmmakers eventually realize. A good screenplay alone is not enough to build a career. Because Erin and her husband Carlo were not beginners. They had spent years writing together, winning competitions, placing in major contests, getting industry recognition, getting those meetings, getting shopping agreements, and more. And nothing happened. At one point, one of their projects even had won or placed in dozens of competitions. And executives were telling them, this should get made. This is really good. You guys are so talented. But despite all that, nothing was happening. No one was buying their scripts. Their films weren't getting made. There was no green light, no production, no real momentum. And eventually they started asking the same question that a lot of filmmakers ask. What are we missing? Because the truth is a good screenplay alone is not enough. Because filmmaking doesn't just operate on creativity. It operates on execution and packaging and risk, marketability, and whether a project actually feels capable of crossing the finish line. And eventually Erin and Carlo reached the same realization a lot of filmmakers reach after enough time in this industry. And they didn't want to spend another decade waiting for someone else to greenlight their future. Because eventually this dream of being discovered starts feeling less possible and you're just exhausting yourself for nothing. They decided to take control of their career and build something themselves. And this is where their age became an advantage because instead of chasing giant fantasy projects the way many filmmakers that are younger do, they start thinking strategically. This is one of the most impactful shifts I see filmmakers make. When you're younger, it's easy to write the giant $20 million sci-fi epic or period drama because money still feels abstract. But later in life, you understand what money actually represents. You understand risk, you understand responsibility, you understand how much time can disappear while waiting for the perfect opportunity. And instead of romanticizing the process, you start asking, what can I realistically build that actually has a shot at getting made? And that question changes everything. So instead of continuing to pursue giant studio-sized projects, they intentionally designed a contained thriller, something exciting, commercial, high concept, but realistically producible on a lower budget. And this is one of the smartest things first-time filmmakers can do. Stop trying to make the biggest movie possible. Start trying to make the smartest movie possible. Because a lot of first-time filmmakers accidentally trap themselves in development hell by trying to make projects far beyond their current resources. And then years pass and nothing moves and the project becomes expensive, too difficult, and too dependent on outside permission. But Erin and Carlo approached this differently. Their concept revolved around a global pandemic. Now, a studio version of that same concept could have easily become some massive disaster film, but instead they built a story around one family, which allowed the movie to still feel emotionally and conceptually large without requiring a giant budget. And that's strategic producing. Not just writing the coolest possible idea, but shaping the idea around what can realistically be executed well and with the resources you have. And this is another area where filmmakers over 40 often have a huge advantage: resourcefulness. Because by this stage of life, you've usually accumulated relationships, skills, experiences, and resources younger filmmakers just haven't had time to build yet. And for Erin, one of the biggest connections came through networking, and the way that it happened shows how unpredictable filmmaking opportunities really are. So Erin joined our program to help her make this film. And inside the program, she connected with another filmmaker and built a relationship. Now, months later, this producer was producing a movie in Minnesota, and that connection eventually led Erin to getting an acting role in the film. And while she was on set, she started talking about her own project, just sharing what she and Carlo were doing. And another actor on set said, oh, you need to meet this producer I know. He's somebody who actually gets things done. And so that connection led to a meeting with the producer who helped bring in nearly a third of their financing. And not only that, his production company eventually came on board to help support the project with crew, gear, production support, and additional resources, which is invaluable. And this is such an important thing to realize. You know, filmmakers, you always want to know where to find the money, but I always say you never know where the next opportunity or investor or breakthrough is going to come from. So you just have to build those relationships regardless. And none of those opportunities really matter if you don't already have a project that feels real and investable and ready to move. That's why networking alone isn't enough. You need a project people can believe in. And once they started building momentum around the project, everything began attracting more momentum. Crew members joined, actors started circling the project, veteran department heads came on board. People started introducing them to additional collaborators and resources. Not because the budget was huge, because they were building something people genuinely wanted to be a part of. And this is something most filmmakers don't always understand. People don't just respond to money. They respond to vision, leadership, clarity, momentum. And when you have a project that is designed to be successful, easy to lead, and it's easy to get people wanting to be involved because you can all see the validated real potential. And that's why we created the Creative Producers Filmmaking Robot Masterclass, because most filmmakers are trying to figure out how to make a film through scattered advice, film festival panels, and expensive trial and error, which can delay projects for years or indefinitely. So if you want to understand how films actually get positioned for funding, packaging, and distribution that leads to a film that gets made, the free masterclass is linked below. It walks through what makes a film fundable, sellable, and sustainable without sacrificing the creative vision that made you want to make films in the first place. So if you're serious about making your first feature film, go watch it. Now let's jump back in. Great producing is often about alignment, building the right project for the right budget with the right strategy at the right scale. And that's what creates traction. And filmmaking is not just creativity. Producing is all about communication and problem solving, relationship building, decision making, and emotional resilience. A lot of younger filmmakers still believe the creative alone will carry the project, but producing a film is much closer to building a business than most people realize. And many filmmakers later in life already have transferable skills from career, leadership, business ownership, parenting, or simply surviving long enough to understand how difficult, meaningful things actually are. And that matters a lot. Now, does that mean that younger filmmakers can't succeed? Of course not. There are always exceptions. There are always breakout stories. There's always lightning in a bottle. But building your entire career strategy around lightning in a bottle is a very dangerous plan. Now, does that mean that making your first feature after 40 is easy? Of course not. There are always setbacks, budget issues, casting changes, production problems. At one point, one of the originally attached actors became unavailable after they had already spent significant time developing the project around her involvement, and they had to pivot. And that flexibility is another major producing skill because filmmaking rarely unfolds exactly the way you imagined it. The filmmakers who survive are usually the ones who learn how to adapt without losing momentum. The filmmakers who sustain careers usually learn how to build projects intentionally. A lot of filmmakers think making a feature after 40 means that they're late, but they're not. Many filmmakers are still approaching filmmaking emotionally, chasing giant budgets, waiting for permission, hoping somebody discovers them. What filmmakers later in life often have is perspective. They understand time differently, risk differently, relationships differently, and that changes how they build films. Erin didn't get her movie made because she got lucky, because she finally stopped approaching filmmaking like somebody hoping to be chosen and started approaching it like a career producer. And if you're over 40 wondering whether you missed your chance, you may finally be in the exact point in your life where you're equipped to do this the right way. And I encourage you to go for it, but do it smart and strategically so you have the best shot at success. If this video helped shift the way you think about making your first feature film, take a second to like the video and subscribe. On this channel, we focus on the real side of producing, funding, packaging, distribution, and how films actually get made. And if you're currently trying to put together your first feature, leave a comment and let me know where you're at in the process. I'd love to know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.